Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was delighted to hear my friend offer those comments. I'm afraid I don't really understand his objection to this legislation. He says we're trying to ram this through after 135 years of doing nothing about the Electoral Count Act. I guess you would have to be a true conservative to see 135 years as moving too quickly in reforming the provisions of this very opaque and in places vague and inscrutable language. But in any event, the gentleman from Pennsylvania argues there have been times that members of both parties have raised objections in the past. That's absolutely right. Both Republicans and Democrats have made objections on the floor in the past. Obviously, none of the objections attributed to those on our side had anything to do with a violent assault on the institutions of the country or an attempt to get the vice president to step outside of his constitutional role or other efforts to conduct what has been called a political coup in the country. But in any event, the gentleman is correct that there have been lots of objections raised. If that is your problem, then you should be absolutely supporting this legislation, because we're proposing to go from a situation where any single member can raise an objection if he or she can get a senator to join them, to a situation where you need a third of the entire House of Representatives and a third of the entire U.S. Senate before an objection can be raised. And the objections can be raised only according to very specific constitutional criteria. They have to be grounded in the text of the Constitution. For example, if a state has not been admitted yet and yet is purporting to offer electors, that would be grounds for rejecting it and for adjusting the denominator. If there are attempts by electors to vote for two people from the same state, which is clearly in violation of the 12th Amendment, then that would be rejected. Right now, anybody can object for any reason he or she wants. There were people in 2021 who were running around talking about precinct problems in particular states or claims of, votes appearing in the middle of the night. Now, there was nothing to any of those. More than 60 federal and state courts rejected every claim of electoral fraud and corruption. But in any event, that's not the job of the House of Representatives, to be out trying to police the counting of ballots in Pennsylvania or Arizona or Georgia or any other state. All we're supposed to do is take the certificate of ascertainment that is provided by the governor based on the state legislature's determination of what the vote is in the casting of the electors from the state. So once that certificate of ascertainment comes in, our job is to accept it. Now, if someone tries not to comply with what the will of the state really was, say a governor says, I disagree with how the people voted, I'm not going to turn it in, then that person can be taken to court by one of the presidential candidates, or both, or all of the presidential candidates, and can be ordered to comply with the political will of the people of the state. And if the governor still refuses to do it, then the court is empowered to give it to another appropriate official, like the Secretary of State, who would then have the authority to file the certificate of ascertainment with the Congress of the United States and with the archivist. So what we're trying to do is take shall we say, an antique kind of instrument, the Electoral College, and we're trying to bring it up to date so it works for us in America in the 21st century. And if your objection is that it's too easy for people of any party to object, I think you totally should be supporting this legislation. With that, I yield to the very distinguished chairman of the Rules Committee, Mr. McGovern from Massachusetts, who I should say was very much with us on January the 6th and was there that night. He was the last person at the dais before we were forced to evacuate from the chamber.